There are moments in life that don't announce themselves. They don't come with music swelling in the background or some voice whispering, "This is important." They look ordinary, forgettable, like a random Tuesday afternoon in a used bookstore. But sometimes, those moments are quietly waiting to change someone else's life forever. Last Tuesday, I walked into a used bookstore in Seattle, the kind of place that feels like time forgot it existed. The air smelled like dust, old paper, and something faintly sweet, almost like vanilla. The shelves were uneven, the floor creaked, and every book looked like it had already lived at least one full life before ending up there. I wasn't looking for anything special. I just wanted a copy of Dune, preferably hardcover, something solid, something permanent. That's when I saw it. A battered paperback shoved halfway into a crooked shelf. The spine was cracked, corners bent, pages yellowed just enough to tell you it had been opened many times and loved hard. Price sticker on the back? $4. I pulled it out. I almost put it back. Paperback, beat up, not what I wanted, but something about it stopped me. It felt personal, like this book had history, like someone had carried it through years of their life and then somehow let it go. So I bought it. $4. No receipt drama, no idea what I was actually taking home. That night, I sat on my couch, cracked the book open, and flipped through until page 142. That's when it happened. A folded piece of yellow legal pad paper slipped out and landed on my lap. At first, I thought it was a bookmark. Then I unfolded it, and everything in the room suddenly felt wrong. The paper was old, creased, the edges soft from time. The handwriting wasn't neat. It was frantic. Blue ink pressed hard into the page, like whoever wrote it was afraid they wouldn't finish in time. At the top, a date, October 14, 2004, and then the words, "David, I hid the bonds in the hollow leg of the old workbench in the garage. I don't trust Elena. If anything happens to me, check the leg. Do not sell the house until you check. Love, Dad." I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. This wasn't a note. This was a confession, a warning, a secret that had been waiting nearly 20 years to be found by someone who wasn't even supposed to find it. My first instinct was guilt, like I had just opened a door I had no right to walk through. My second instinct was fear, because suddenly I wasn't holding a piece of paper anymore. I was holding the missing answer to someone else's life. I flipped the book over and opened the inside cover, stamped faintly in red ink, Ex Libris, Arthur P. Halloway. That's when I realized something terrifying. This wasn't fiction. This wasn't a puzzle. This was real. And somewhere out there, a man named David had been living for 20 years, believing his father left him nothing. And I was holding proof that wasn't true. At that moment, I had two choices. Close the book, put the paper back, pretend none of this was ever my problem, or try to find a man I had never met and tell him that his entire understanding of his father's death might be wrong. I chose the second option, and that choice would change everything. There's a strange weight that comes with holding someone else's truth. It's not physical. It sits somewhere between your chest and your conscience. That night, I couldn't keep reading Dune. The story inside the book felt irrelevant now. The real story was sitting on my coffee table, folded, yellowed, and shaking slightly in my hands. I kept rereading the letter, hoping it would somehow become less real. It didn't. The handwriting stayed frantic. The words stayed urgent. And the name, David, kept staring back at me like a responsibility I never asked for. I remember thinking, this could ruin someone's life. Or give it back to them?
and I had no idea which. The name inside the cover. I picked the book up again and opened the front cover, slower this time, like I was afraid it might reveal something else I wasn't ready for. The stamp was faint, almost worn away by time. Ex Libris, Arthur P. Halloway. No address, no note, just a name quietly claiming ownership. Arthur P. Halloway. The letter said Dad. The letter said David. The book said Arthur. 3 pieces of a puzzle that had been separated for 2 decades and somehow ended up in my hands for $4. That's when I realized something uncomfortable. If I did nothing, this secret would disappear again. The book would go back on a shelf, the letter would go back between pages, and the truth would stay buried, just like whatever was hidden inside that workbench.
The moral weight of the internet. I sat there staring at my laptop for a long time. The internet is a strange place. It can be cruel, nosy, dangerous, but it's also the only reason lost people ever get found anymore. I told myself I'd just look. No promises, no expectations. I typed the name into Google. Arthur P. Halloway. At first, nothing useful. Too many Arthurs, too many Halloways, too many dead ends. Then I narrowed it down. Location, Washington. Year, 2005. And there it was. An obituary. The obituary. It was simple, almost painfully ordinary. Arthur P. Halloway, born 1948, passed away suddenly, 2005, Tacoma, Washington. Survived by his wife, Alina, his son, David. I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a story I was inventing. This was real, documented, archived. Arthur Halloway had died less than a year after writing that letter, and whatever he was afraid of, he never got the chance to stop. Finding David. I wish I could say the next part was smooth or confident. It wasn't. I stared at David's name on my screen like it might yell at me if I clicked it. Facebook profile. Profile picture, a man in his early 50s, standing outdoors, smiling but reserved, the kind of smile that looks practiced, earned. Normal posts, family photos, work updates. A normal life. And I was about to send a message that could shatter it or heal something that had been broken for 20 years. Writing the message. I typed, deleted, typed again, deleted again. How do you tell a stranger, hey, I bought a used book and inside it is proof your father tried to leave you something before he died? How do you say that without sounding insane? Eventually, I just told the truth. No drama, no mystery bait, just facts. I hit send and immediately regretted it. The waiting. Facebook has a special way of making anxiety worse. Message request sent. That was it. No read receipt, no typing bubble, just silence. Hours passed, then a full day. I started imagining all the ways this could go wrong. He'd think I was a scammer. He'd block me. He'd report me. He'd never see the message at all. I even considered deleting my account, like that would somehow undo what I'd done. By the second night, I'd convinced myself this story would end with me quietly returning the letter to the book and never speaking of it again. The message that changed everything. Then yesterday afternoon, my phone buzzed. A Facebook notification. My heart jumped into my throat. One message from David. It said, "Who is this, and how do you have my father's handwriting?" I stared at the screen. This was it. No undo button. No backing out. I replied immediately. I explained the bookstore, the $4 book, the letter.
I attached a photo, and then, before I could even lock my phone, it rang.
The finances, the paperwork. There was no will, no savings, nothing. David and his sister had always felt something was wrong. Arthur had been careful, thoughtful, private, but not careless. Yet when everything was settled, there was nothing left for them. They questioned it. They were told there was nothing to find. A month after the funeral, the house was sold to Elena's brother, and that was the end of it. Or so they thought. 20 years of doubt. David told me something that hit harder than I expected. He said, "For 20 years, I felt crazy, like I was making up this idea that my dad cared enough to leave us something. He had replayed memories, second-guessed conversations, wondered if he'd misunderstood the man who raised him. And now, a stranger from Seattle was holding proof that his father had tried." The detail that changed everything. When David finally caught his breath, I read the letter to him, slowly, exactly as it was written. When I reached the line, "the hollow leg of the old workbench in the garage," he went silent. Then he said, "The workbench is still there." The house hadn't been remodeled. The garage hadn't been cleared. The workbench, the same one Arthur had worked on for years, was still sitting exactly where it always had. After 20 years, David was going back, and whatever his father hid inside that workbench was about to be found.
In the end, there was no dramatic celebration, no viral moment, and no headline written about what happened next. Life simply went on, quietly, steadily, and honestly. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but it no longer controlled every breath. What once felt like the end slowly became the beginning of something calmer, something real. This story isn't about winning or losing. It's about surviving the moments no one sees. It's about the strength people carry silently, even when the world thinks they are weak. Many walk past us every day carrying stories just like this, unfinished, unheard, but deeply human. And maybe that's the truth we forget most often. Not every hero is loud. Not every battle is visible. Not every story ends perfectly, but some end honestly. This was one of them.